Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Mark Potter, the superintendent from the Liverpool Central School District. I'm here to present a brief overview of the budget presentation. It's a draft budget that was provided to the Board of Education on February 24th at their annual board meeting for the budget presentation. We start out with helping folks understand what is our mission, our expectations. We are here to prepare our students for tomorrow, which requires us to begin today. We also want folks to understand that we have a responsibility to make sure we're supporting our students with some very specific tenets. We want to have effective communicators, innovative thinkers, problem solvers, and lifelong learners who can contribute to our ever-changing world. We also rolled out an initiative entitled Education 2020, which has aspects specific to our staff, our community that they value. One being health and safety of our facilities, including our students and our staff. We want to increase our focus on issues related to students, staff, and family mental health. We want to increase programming opportunities in areas such as STEAM, CTE, internships, special education, and we also want to continue to monitor and maintain our class size or even reduce that specific ratio. The appropriations, as you can see, is broken into a handful of items along the left-hand side: instructional salaries, non-instructional salaries, etc. This is also broken out that we have last year's budget, the current year's budget, and the proposal for next year's 2020-2021 budget. And you can see in red those areas and some of the increases or the percentage changes from the current year to next year. Similarly, this is the revenue list. Again, on the left-hand side, we have areas that funding or financially where money or where our physical revenues come from, real property, pilot, sales tax, state aid, federal aid, etc. And you can see again the 18-19 budget from last year, the current 19-20 budget from this year, and the proposal for next year. The proposal for next year is in red. And you can see the percentage changes between the current year and next year. We also, for several years, have utilized underspent money from the current budget for funding the revenues for the following year's budget. This has been done, you can see here, for about the last 12 or so years. And typically those numbers fluctuate depending on how foundation aid and other state and federal funding has impacted the district's budget. As of right now, you can see that we have it set at $1 million as a placeholder. You can see the last 3 years we've been in the $3 to $3.5 million range. In the prior years, it's been a little more changing as needs changed. The foundation aid formula is an area or a piece of legislation that comes from Albany identifying where the current estimated state aid is and what's being proposed for the following year. In this particular document that was shared with the district, there was a significant change in how it was presented. You can see several areas that have dashes, meaning that those areas weren't funded. In reality, they were added into the foundation aid number at the top, which makes that look artificially inflated. I'm going to go to another slide that perhaps shows it a little bit of a cleaner look. These have all been put into the appropriate lines, and you can see that it wasn't actually 12% in foundation aid. It's actually 1%. But I also want to point out the very bottom on this slide, community schools. This is a new funding area that the state and the governor have agreed upon. The unfortunate part is that it's been added into foundation aid, but it can't be used for any existing programs. It's only to be applied for new funding opportunities. So with that understood, the foundation aid is really about a $266,000 increase, or about 0.6% increase from the current year to next year. The tax cut calculation, and we talk about this every year, was established in 2011, and it was an effort to try to help both districts and the community predict what the local share for school district funding was going to be. The intention of this at the time when it was created was to limit that increase to the consumer price index, which is also known as the statewide economic growth, or 2%, whichever is lower. The calculation in the tax cap itself is a series of factors: CPI, as I mentioned, property expansion, also known as growth, within our school boundaries, the impact of pilots, and those are payments in lieu of taxes. Those agreements come from the county or the town, and the school district understands that those companies have those agreements, understanding that they're not going to pay the full amount of taxes as an agreement with that entity or municipality. Also includes exemptions, and in our case, debt for existing capital construction. So here's the tax cap calculation, and it begins with mathematically last year or this current year's prior year, also known as the tax levy. In this particular case this year, we had 3 companies not pay their taxes, but paid a pilot after the pilot agreement had lapsed. So we will have to put that in a reserve and then apply it as revenue after the fact. So I want to bring you down to this area. The current tax levy is 2.4627%, but with that pilot payment, we have to reduce the levy by 1.1797%, which realistically makes the levy for the community 1.2830, or approximately 1.3% for next year. And we will take that $1 million pilot payment and apply it as revenue alongside what would have been an increased levy. So maybe this will be a little clearer. Here's the tax cap calculation as it's broken out into those areas. The total allowable tax levy for next year will be 1.2830, or if you round it, it'll be approximately 1.3%. The growth in the district is a slight negative, a 0.2804. The CPI, or the economic growth in the state, is approximately 1.74%. Our debt on our capital construction will go down slightly, a 0.1655%, and the pilots are approximately 1.2%, which creates a tax cap calculation of 2.467 once we apply the $1,036,214 pilot check as revenue. Each year we buy vehicles. We have a 10-year replacement plan for our buses. So we plan this year to buy 7 new large buses, 1 large bus with a wheelchair lift, 1 small bus with a wheelchair lift and air conditioning, and 3 other small buses with air conditioning. And we'll also plan on purchasing a loader to replace one that we've been renting. So you can see in the black the total cost of these vehicles, and they're aided at approximately 75% and paid over 5 years, 5 payments. So you can see the $1.5 million total, with approximately 75% coming back on the buses. So what adjustments have we made thus far? And you can see these are specific to salaries, benefits, contractual items, BOCES, services, and staffing. When we began our process of budget evaluation on January 5th, we had an estimated appropriation amount of $168,448,667. We also had a revenue estimate of $160,226,417, which created a gap between the appropriations and revenues of about $8.2 million. Middle of this month, on February 13th, we had reduced the appropriations to $167,731,435, and we had increased the revenues with some adjustments to $162,517,827, reducing that gap from 8.2 to 5.2. Over the next 7 weeks, we'll continue to make alterations in several areas, and I'll show a slide later on where some of those areas will include. Each year, we bang this same drum, just making sure everyone is aware. In total aid lost, because in Albany, the governor doesn't continuously follow the calculation that was created in 2006 for school district foundation aid. Each year, there's a required process that the governor should be following for making sure that students' free and appropriate public education is paid for. In this case, you can see what the current year's aid over these particular years from 2007 and through 2019, 2020, the current year. You can see if the governor followed the foundation aid calculation or formula. This is what the district should have gotten, and you can see over the course of these years, the district has lost nearly $58 million in foundation aid. One quick point, if the governor had been following the formula, there would not be a gap each year between appropriations and revenues at this point. I also want to touch quickly on the warehouse project, some information out there that may or may not be totally accurate. The current owner is the Liverpool Country Club, potentially soon to be a warehouse project. The current golf course property has a value of about $1.3 million, which translates to a tax base of about $37,000. The proposed warehouse property would increase that value from 1.3 to $126.3 million. It would also increase the total taxes being paid both from the county, the town, and to the district of about $5.9 million. But it also includes a 15-year pilot. Important to note that the property value will increase as construction progresses. Assuming this moves ahead, it'll take approximately 2 years. The levy is impacted only slightly by the increase in property taxes, and what I mean by that is that assuming the warehouse project is completed and they pay their $5.9 million, it won't be $5.9 million added directly to the levy. It's the taxes they're paying, which replaces potentially taxes being paid by other homeowners. As such, the town of Clay property owners should see a slight positive tax impact on their own home taxes. This is a copy of the pilot agreement. You can see years 1 through 15, and you can see the exemption percentage from 90 going down to 10, and eventually in the 16th year they would be paying, they would have no exemption, which means they're paying 100% of their taxes. And you can see each of the areas, what the county would be picking up, what the town would be picking up, what the district would be picking up, and what the total pilot is. And you can see in the column entitled Full Tax Payment Without Pilot what they would have been paying and what the net exemption is. So you can see in the 15th year at $5.935 million is where the business would be at as far as paying taxes by that point in time. So just quickly giving you just some areas of focus over the next 7 weeks. Once the foundation aid has been finalized with the New York State budget on or about April 1st, we will make that adjustment in our revenue. We also will make an adjustment once we realize where we're at with fund balance and also what reserve options we have. We know that the tax cap will be moved to a 1.3% increase. Right now we're sitting at 2%, so that would be a negative adjustment for revenue. But we also know we would be applying the pilot check of about approximately $1,038,000. With that, we would be making a positive adjustment to revenues. We also will plan on reducing the general fund and local budget by altering some additional appropriation areas. We will review the BOCES services and see if there's areas of district programs can find for potential savings in those BOCES services. And the seventh or last area we would look at would be to do some of the budget reductions through attrition or retirements of some of our staff positions. Each year, whenever there's openings in positions, we utilize this document to identify, are we going to fill that position? Are there opportunities for us to reduce staffing, or can we do what we're doing just in an alternative manner rather than just renewing or reutilizing that same position over again. So in summary, the budget here in Liverpool has a substantial gap between appropriations and revenues. The current negotiations occurring between the legislature and the governor will go on until approximately April 1st, where we believe there will be an on-time budget. Right now, we understand there's a deficit in the New York State budget of approximately $6 billion. We anticipate the board in Liverpool approving the 2020-2021 general fund budget on April 13th, but it has to happen no later than April 24th. So over the next 7 weeks, we will continue our budget workshop meetings, and I expect to have a balanced budget prior to April 13th. Thank you very much.